Hi everyone, my name is Jaden Greenberg and I'm here to give to you my Marketing 451 final analytical presentation titled, Is Quarterback Rating a Reliable Metric of Measuring Team Success in the NFL? In order to understand that question, we need to first look at what is success? How do we define success anyway? Since success can mean many things for many different people, some consider success in the NFL as receiving individual honors such as MVP, Player or Rookie of the Year, and being enshrined to the Hall of Fame. But others agree that being a successful individual player starts with how well one can impact their team. We see this take shape in the form of division, conference, and league titles. The standard of success we will be evaluating in particular is Super Bowl wins. What is quarterback rating? In the NFL, the passer rating formula includes 5 variables: pass attempts, completions, passing yards, touchdown passes, and interceptions. Each of these variables is scaled to a value between 0 and 2.375, with 1.0 being statistically average. A perfect passer rating, 158.33, requires the following criteria: 77.5% completion percentage, that's 31 completions in every 40 attempts, 12.5 yards per attempt, and 1 touchdown in every 8.421 pass attempts, and no interceptions. So if the calculation totals above 2.375, it is automatically 2.375, and if it's below 0, it automatically gets rounded up to 0. All right. In short, I do not believe that an individual's performance is reliable to the point where it translates to a team's entire performance. This topic of discussion has been brushed on throughout the semester, especially when looking at the linear regression model of the lecture titled Analytics in Football, where point differential was most reliable predictor of a team's success, which doesn't take a lot of critical thinking to understand. The next highest correlated statistics would be net passing yards per attempt and turnover differential. All right, how effective is quarterback rating in getting a team to the NFL playoffs? The graph on the left is a logistic regression of a team's quarterback rating for a given season between 2011 and 2020, and whether they made the playoffs that year. The straight blue line represents the average quarterback rating for seasons 2011 through 2020, 88.8, while the black line shows the separation of teams based on their ability to make the playoffs for that respective season. You can see that to the left of the graph is the teams that performed below average quarterback rating for the 10 years, and teams to the right were above average, but teams above the black line all made the playoffs, and teams below the black line missed out on the playoffs. So you can see that the yellow, the blue, the purple, and the red all indicate different scenarios. The graph on the right is a mosaic plot or confusion matrix displaying all possible outcomes for each observation, so it's a little bit more simple than the scatter plot. The teams that are marked by green crosses indicate Super Bowl winners. So you can just see the whole range of quarterback rating and how far a team went in the playoffs based on this graph. The mosaic plots boxes correlate to each color in the logistic regression again. All right. In the regression from the previous slide, there is an estimate that a higher quarterback rating lowers a team's chances of making the playoffs, as you can see by the quarterback rating estimate of negative 0.1340232. Of course, we can use logical reasoning to deduce that this isn't necessarily the case, but rather it takes a great team all around to achieve success in the form of making the playoffs or winning the Super Bowl. In other words, it takes more than just an above average quarterback to make it big. This small detail, however, begs a few questions. What if the NFL adopted a playoff structure that disregarded division winners entirely? Might there be more teams with above average quarterback ratings that make it in? For example, the 2014 Panthers and the 2020 Washington football team both finished with below 500 records in the years between 2011 and 2020. So maybe there would be some different teams that were perhaps 10-6, 9-7, or even 8-8 that would make the playoffs instead of those teams. How would that impact the estimates from the previous graph, right? So Another thing to question is, how does the NFL's new 14-team playoff structure play a role here? This past season was the first to introduce one team in each conference to the playoff picture. So instead of 12, now there are 14 teams. Only time will tell, though, to kind of encompass the changes that are being made in the league. All right. If you're a Saints fan, I'm sorry about this, but we're going to look at a case which I find very, very fascinating, and that is the case of the New Orleans Saints, who most recently won a Super Bowl in 2010, the 2009 season. So when it comes to the observation that an individual performance does not always lead to overall team success, no franchise has proven to be a bigger testament over the last decade than the New Orleans Saints. Despite having astounding offensive performances over the years, there are some scenarios that can't always prepare for. In 2013, 2017, 2018, and 2019, the Saints suffered tremendous playoff losses. However, the latter three can really exemplify how one person, Drew Brees, can only do so much. In 2017, the Saints season was ended by a miscalculated tackle on the last play of the game, which led to a Stephon Diggs touchdown reception as time expired, thus becoming the Minneapolis Miracle. 2018 brought a more heartbreaking circumstance in the form of a blatantly uncalled pass interference by Nickel Roby-Coleman of the Rams, which led to an overtime loss off the foot of Rams kicker Greg Zuerlein. Finally, in 2019, an overtime loss to Minnesota spurred by a Drew Brees fourth quarter fumble essentially came down to a 50-50 coin flip that resulted in the Vikings scoring on the first possession of overtime. And here you can see how the lowest quarterback rank of any season in the past 10 years for the Saints was 8. So again, remarkable quarterback performance over the past decade. But then you kind of look over to the years that the Saints didn't make the playoffs, and their defense was atrocious those years. 31 in defensive points rating, 27 for defensive yards rating in the year 2016. 2015 tells a similar story, as well as 2014 and 2012. All right. Over the years, we have seen how there are other key factors that impact the Super Bowl more than just excellent quarterbacking play. Here are some examples of how some teams' adequate preparation for their opponent led them to glory. In 2015, it was Brandon Browner's direction over Malcolm Butler to crash hard on a pass intended for Ricardo Lockett, resulting in a game-saving, last-minute interception on the goal line for the Patriots. In 2019, the story was how Bill Belichick completely outcoached Sean McVay, undoing an offensive scheme that troubled other teams all season long into a stagnant and lackluster performance. And in 2014, the Seattle Seahawks dominated the Denver Broncos on all facets, but held one of the best offenses of the league that season to just 8 points. Sometimes there are decisive strategies that teams can't prepare for, unfortunately, or have maybe overlooked entirely. In 2018, this was the case with the Philly Special, as it was named, was put to use by Eagles coach Doug Peterson at a critical point in the game. The play was originally run by the Chicago Bears in 2016 against the Vikings, where Cameron Meredith tossed a touchdown pass to quarterback Matt Barkley. Things kind of came full circle when the Eagles quarterback Nick Foles caught a touchdown on the same play type and in the same stadium that Barkley had. And in 2010, what is largely considered to be one of the gutsiest calls in sports history depicted an onside kick to start the second half, which was successfully recovered by the New Orleans Saints, tilting the momentum in their favor, which they rode out with the rest of the competition. Human factors. On the biggest stage in American sports, there are many times where an individual can feel the eyes of millions burning into their skulls. In a category named Human Factors, I have compiled some moments where I feel that the pressure of the Super Bowl may have influenced one's actions or performance to a larger effect than games with less at stake might have. Super Bowl 50 marks Cam Newton's first time on the big stage. If you remember the play where Von Miller records a strip sack, it appears as though Newton makes no attempt whatsoever to recover the fumble. The MVP turned in a lousy performance that year as his team fell to the Denver Broncos in what would be Peyton Manning's last game as a professional football player. In 2013, a potential missed pass interference call against the Ravens on Michael Crabtree in the game's dying moments sealed the deal for the Ravens. This game featured a blackout in the stadium that may have impacted players' momentum at that point in the game. Lastly, in 2020, Jimmy Garoppolo overthrew Emmanuel Sanders late in the fourth quarter for what may have been a game-winning touchdown. As we round out the other ways in which games might be impacted, we turn our focus to the most confounding variable there is, randomness. Randomness is hard to put a label on, but here are some ways that make me say, how in the world was that possible? First is David Tyree's helmet catch in 2008, which was preceded by a near sack of Eli Manning in the backfield, which would have put the game on ice for the 16-0 New England Patriots, thus elevating them to the only team to win all their games, including the Super Bowl, since the Miami Dolphins accomplished that in 1972. And this catch in 2017 that saw Julian Edelman secure the ball with his fingertips just centimeters above the ground while smothered by the Falcons' defense in triple coverage. To summarize, being the league's best quarterback for a respective season might be a better indicator as to who will get offered an endorsement deal rather than who will win the Super Bowl. All jokes aside, what the data for this presentation shows is that one cannot rely solely on how well their quarterback performs throughout the season with the hopes that they win a Super Bowl, although great quarterbacking does help. Evidently, a good team requires balance on all sides of the ball, good coaching, and every once in a while, a little bit of luck. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you enjoyed.